Good evening, all. A very special welcome to this public talk series conducted by GSFK. The Global Science Festival Kerala is a wonderful platform that brings together diverse individuals, students, artists, and scientists to explore and celebrate science through a thematically curated exhibition. This collaborative approach fosters a unique intersection of creativity and scientific inquiry, making it an enriching experience for all participants. I hope this event sparks inspiration and meaningful interactions among its diverse attendees. In the spirit of inquiry that has fueled human progress for centuries, this festival serves as a beacon of curiosity, bringing together minds eager to explore the frontiers of science. This is indeed a special session as I am overwhelmed with excitement, utterly enamored because the speaker is none other than the fine artist, director, writer, and activist, and our dear Kannagi, Srimati Nandita Das, and on the topic, Can Art Create Change? Now I invite Shyam V.S., Associate Festival Director, to deliver the welcoming remarks.
Good evening, dear friends. We are thrilled to welcome the esteemed Nandita Das to our event. Following our other luminaries, of course, we had a series of talks and seminars in connection with this Global Science Festival. So following our other luminaries and dignitaries, today we have Nandita Das, who's a celebrated actor, director, and activist, joins us to explore a very relevant question: can art create change? So a warm science festival welcome to Nandita Das. Welcome, ma'am. Also, I extend my welcome to all the dignitaries, students, media persons, science enthusiasts, art lovers, and other people who came here to listen Nandita Das. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shyam. The session will be chaired by Dr. Vaishakhan Thambi. He is the curator and convener of GSFK Science Committee, an assistant professor of physics in Mahatma Gandhi College, Trivandrum. He has been active in science popularization for more than a decade. He is an author of 6 popular science books and a speaker who has delivered science talks in and outside India. He holds a PhD in material science from National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, Trivandrum. So, sir, please welcome.
Good evening, all. Today, we are almost weeks from the beginning of Global Science Festival Kerala. And many people have come here on this dais and talked about very diverse subjects, and people, very eminent people from different walks of life, including scientists from NASA and politicians like Srimati Kanimurji Karunanidhi. And today we have Srimati Nandita Das. GSFK at its core is based on the philosophy of blending art and science for the betterment of both and for the betterment of the society. We are so used to thinking science and art as two non-intersecting circles, but GSFK aims to change that perception. Whether it's science or art, both are human endeavors, social endeavors. So in that way, it's one of the very strongest connections possible. Both has something to do with society as a whole. So here GSFK tries to change the perception that they are different topics. Instead, we want to establish that they have a lot to hand or exchange between themselves. That is why we had hosted many people from different areas and we were listening to them, what they had to talk to us. And when Srimati Nandita Das is here to talk about the possibilities of change art can build to society, and she raises this question whether art can bring change to the society, people think or people agree, they don't usually argue that science has brought about changes. Then what is the role of, what is the relevance of discussing art and the change it can bring about to the society on a platform which is called Global Science Festival Kerala? And Kerala has always stood up for its principles where science should cater to the common public. It is not something that is actually done by scientists who are residing on ivory towers. We wanted to bring science down to the public. That is the whole idea of GSFK. It wanted science to be a topic of discussion among the common public. And by common public, I mean a person who holds an IAS, because if he has not got any formal background in science, from the perspective of science, he is considered a layman. So whether, irrespective of gender, irrespective of social class, everyone should consider science a serious endeavor. That is the whole idea behind GSFK, and it should cater to the progress of society as a whole. And now, I am not the right person you are going to listen to in this platform. My formal role here is to be the chair of this session, which I consider to be a great privilege for me. And without taking much of your time, let me introduce Srimati Nandita Das to you, which might be a bit inappropriate because I am not supposed to introduce her to you, as you are all aware who she is and what she has done for the society, for the field of art and social work. She has acted in many films with very eminent directors like Adur Gopalakrishnan, Mani Ratnam, Mrinals, and people like them. She has directed films. She has written a lot on social issues. She holds a master's degree in social work. And she was saying that she is more of an arts person, not a science person. And she said it when I said I am a science guy. But we want to assure you, ma'am, that you are the right person we are going to be listening to today. And I have offered her to have a personal guide or guided tour of the festival, which she has agreed to accompany us and see some of the things. I have made some remarks about what is happening here, and she is very interested to see, and I hope we all are happy to host you here. We are all happy to listen to you. And with these brief remarks, let me clear this dais and leave it open to our chief guest of the day, Srimati Nandita Das. Welcome, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Namaskaram. Salam. So this is a nice and intimate crowd, so I think I'm not going to bore you with a very long talk. You can raise your hand if you're getting bored, because there might be more science background people, and we can then have a conversation. And please feel free to disagree, agree, ask questions, share, and let's make it more sort of interactive. So firstly, I want to thank the GSFK for inviting me. I was quite surprised. I was like, a science festival and they're calling me to talk. I'm like, are you sure? I know nothing about science. Very early on I was telling the chair that, we didn't have very good teachers, and we undermine the role of teachers. Teachers can instill love for a subject, can also destroy your love for the subject. So unfortunately, I sort of did not fall in love with science. And as a vengeance, my son, who's 13, is completely crazy about science. So I think he's redeeming my whatever I did. So we have a good balance now in the family. So he really truly loves science and math and all the things that I didn't grow up with. So I'm really happy that when there are interdisciplinary interactions, I think we learn so much more about each other. Otherwise, we are all operating in our little silos, our echo chambers. We kind of know what we are going to say, how it's going to be received. So I'm also really curious to hear all of you and what are your thoughts about it. when they asked me, okay, what do we speak about? And I was thinking, and sometimes whatever is on top of your own mind, like every morning I wake up and I see the kind of films that are doing really well, especially I live in Mumbai, and the kind of films, the Hindi films, we were just talking, some really, the films that are getting box office hits, etc. They're very different from the kind of films that I would like to make. So I wonder that, is it any point making films? Do I really want to? Is this what I want to do? Does art even create any change? Like, that's the reason why I want to do it. Like you rightly said, I did my master's in social work, and I was quite happy working in an NGO with women and children till I did my first film, which was Fire. And this is 26 years ago. And I remember the first screening we had anywhere in India was at the Trivandrum Film Festival. And frankly speaking, the reaction wasn't very encouraging. We had by then traveled all over the world, gone to many festivals. We were used to the kind of audience response we were getting. And mostly for a film like Fire, which was a love story between two women, something we never talked about in our setting. We didn't have a vocabulary for it. Now we call it LGBTQIA+, etc. 26 years ago, it was only homosexuality and heterosexuality. There wasn't anything more. And usually women would come and see our films more, like it premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, then it went on to other festivals in Europe, etc. And in Trivandrum we saw the first screening, and I still remember, and please don't take offense to it, but it was a hall, a big hall, one of the larger ones, I think Tagore Hall or something it's called, I don't remember now, but a large hall, and mostly it had men. And when the mother-in-law, some of you might have seen the film, when the mother-in-law spits on Shabana Azmi's character, people clapped. And in every other place, there was a collective sigh, like people would go, and here there was, people actually clapped. So I was like, wow, this film, I'm not sure whether it should be released in India. Anyhow, after that, the censor board saw it. The director was also prepared to get some cuts, and it was a landmark decision. The censor board did not give even a single cut, even when the director thought surely they're going to cut something. So it was quite a landmark view. The film was released. On the 13th day, attack started by a handful of people, and saying that this is not part of Indian culture, this is not part of Hindu culture, etc. But the response to that was that a lot of people, students, journalists, professionals, came to the street and said whether it's a good film or a bad film, that's a separate question. I think we have the freedom to know what we want to watch. That freedom cannot be taken away from us. And it's one of those films, like, usually in science you can see the impact, at least in my mind, I feel like it's more tangible. If you put in this, you know what the outcome is going to be. Or even if you don't know, you know what you think the outcome is going to be, and you work towards it. Art is so amorphous in that sense. It's an alchemy, you put in different things, but you don't quite know how it's going to be received, because each one of us is going to see it differently. You show the same film here, and some things you might be aligned, some things you may think very differently. Some scene that really worked for you will not work for you, because you come with your own experiences, your own understanding of situations, what you connect with, what you don't. But Fire was really one of those films where I could actually see a tangible change, a tangible change in the mindset. It suddenly brought the conversation to the public domain, where people were talking about it. Whether they hated the film, whether they liked the film, whether they were uncomfortable about the film, whether they understood it intellectually but didn't understand it emotionally, or they understood it emotionally but couldn't justify it in their mind. At least there was a conversation, and I think that's always the starting point. If a film can trigger a conversation, good, bad, ugly, whatever it may be, I think we are moving. And I think that's the power of cinema. Some more obvious, and some you can never tell. Sometimes you think that what change has really happened? Today things just seem to be worse. So what was the point of all those wonderful films that I grew up watching, or the films that I tried to be part of as an actor or direct? Sometimes you can be very pessimistic, like, But you can't see in life. There was a film called Sliding Doors. I don't know if you've seen. So there is a whole situation that happens, and then the second half of it is, if this woman did not take the train, like if she took another path, what would have happened? But in life, you never get to see that if films were not made, or if paintings were not there, or if music was not there, where would we be? But you would all agree that we cannot actually imagine a life without the arts, even though it may not seem so significant. Some people might even think art is an elitist thing. Art is an excessive thing. Do we really need art? When people are dying of hunger, when there are so many issues that are plaguing our society, what is really the role of art? Isn't it a luxury? Isn't it something that, some privileged people can afford to do? But if you really go to the history of art, it really started with the caveman and women, or the cave paintings are the earliest paintings we see. Why did they have to paint? They should have just done their hunting, gathered, made babies, and it would be fine, right? But in every culture, every old culture, you see that people are finding ways to express themselves. I think to want to express yourself is a very primal thing. We all want to express. We all want to tell stories. We all want to find ways to express. And there are scientists who paint, who play music, who do other things. So it's not so mutually exclusive. It's in fact, it can become elitist, but it isn't an elitist activity. It is a very primordial, a very natural, human instinct to want to express, to share, to communicate, to find a different language, to be able to do it with a way that goes into your subconscious. When you watch a film, you don't say that, oh, I saw this film and I'm a changed human being. No. I mean, no film has stopped a war, or, has given a job, or has solved any big social evil. But if you really dig deep, I'm sure you and I, if we think of all the responses like, how are we changing? I'm the same person in the core of things, but in these 30 years, I'm not the same person. How do I know that I've changed, even though my core values remain the same? And I think the only way I know I've changed is when I see my responses to things have changed. And what has impacted those responses? It's the people I've met, the films I've watched, the books I've read. It is an amalgamation of all those influences that I have subconsciously maybe stored in my mind, and it has impacted my responses. So no big events can be stopped by art, but if I am a changed person, how I engage with an event, how I engage with other people, how I respond to situations is going to change. So whether you're a scientist, or I'm a filmmaker or an actor, we are first human beings. So if something can help us look at our prejudices, if something can help us look at our fears, if something can help us look at our desires, our aspirations, whatever it is, then, film is like a mirror. You see a story and you think, oh, that character, yeah, the way he's saying or the way she's doing is very similar to how I feel. That dilemma that is portrayed, I can relate to that dilemma. That woman is feeling guilty. Oh my God, I've felt that emotion so many times. That's how you also create empathy. Because oftentimes you see films about people who you don't interact with. For instance, the last film I did, which is barely seen, it was at the Trivandrum Film Festival, but still not released on OTT. That's a whole different challenge. But it's called Zwigato, which is sort of an amalgamation of the food delivery apps. It's basically about a food delivery rider and his family. And it was born during COVID times when we were all protected in our homes. We were ordering much more in Mumbai and in rest of the country, everywhere. I was sitting at home, and I remember one day a food delivery rider panicked and called me that it's 5 minutes late because of some situation. He could not, because there was a lot of traffic, he had a puncture, something happened, and he's a little late, and he panicked so much. Like he was literally shivering that, please, mujhe kam rating mat dena, madam, please, rating kam mat dena. And I said, just calm down, it's okay, it's just 5-10 minutes, it's not the end of the world. I didn't even understand, and I started digging deeper into it. And then I started talking to the riders, and I thought, my God, in this contactless delivery, you don't even see the riders. During COVID, they could leave it with the watchman, but Bombay has all these high-rise buildings, and I'm in one of them on the 9th floor, so he's not allowed to, he wasn't allowed, or they weren't allowed to even come up. So there is always this other, there is always somebody whose life you are clueless about. You imagine a certain life, but you actually don't know what their fears are, what this rating and incentive and what kind of fear it's creating when they tell you that, can you please take a selfie, or I'll get 5 rupees more, can you please give me rating? And initially we used to be like, listen, I haven't even eaten, like, why are you so obsessed with rating? But if you knew that they get 5 rupees more, what is the value of 5 rupees in my life right now? It's nothing. And in that person's life, it's going to matter. If you give him a good rating, he'll get more jobs. Every day, you're like a daily wager. We understand a construction worker sitting at the corner of a street waiting to be taken for work, but we don't understand somebody wearing a smart t-shirt and a bag and being on a bike with a helmet, but he's actually like a daily wager, and any day he could be getting more orders, the next day he could be crashing down. So the vulnerabilities of not just him but his family, what is it like? So that was the story. So I feel that what art can really do is to create that empathy, is to show you what you would normally not see. Those are the things I feel that art can really do. It can also challenge your prejudices. All of us have some prejudices. Oh, if you're a scientist, you must be like this. If you're a journalist, you must be like this. If you're an actor, you must be like this. If you're Malayali, you must be like this. If you're a Bengali, Punjabi, Gujarati, we are very quick at judging. So when we see stories, when we see characters that we are prejudiced about, and when they are shown in a different light, it allows us to relook at our prejudices and relook at how we have perceived them. So I think in that sense, art can do many different things, and simultaneously, it's not a lecture. It's not telling you, hey, I'm doing this scene to show you how prejudiced you are about this, or I'm creating an empathy, or I'm challenging this, or I'm teaching you this. Really good art should be the one where you don't know what it's doing to your mind and heart, which again are not different, like science and art. We have, our vocabulary is limited. I think we have created too many of these polarities. But when the mind and the heart both are touched, that is when we feel that, yeah, this film, I'm being able to relate, because I'm going back with some feeling, I'm going back with some thought. It's lingering in my mind. Why is it still bothering me? Oh my God, that scene was just so disturbing. I could feel through her eyes, the emotion of the character, or the subtle inequalities that exist between men and women, and also in Kerala, which is a matrilinear society. But, I'm sure women will vouch more, and sensitive men as well, that there is an inherent inequality that has existed for a very long time. And we have kind of just, allowed it to happen, despite the fact that there are more women in schools, there are more, girls in schools, there are more women doing jobs, there are more women speaking up. But actually in the workforce, women are declining. From 27 just 10 years ago, now we are at 23%. So it seems almost counterintuitive. You feel like, how is it even possible? So when you see these stories about women being shown with their vulnerabilities, their strengths, complex characters, where things are not black and white, where there is no one hero and one villain, where there are all good people who are just victims of their own circumstances, then we start thinking about it, I think, in a deeper way. So art is something which is not, we often say that it's not a science. Usually we say that because the reason being, like I said, it is an alchemy of things. You don't quite know, it's not a sum total of its parts. You can't put a little bit of this and a little bit of that and mix it up and then you know exactly how it's going to come out. Nobody actually knows how it's going to come out. But strangely, even on a flat screen, you can feel an intention. If the intent of the filmmaker is pure, is honest, is something that is coming from a deeper place, that person has worked hard on not just what they want to say, but how they want to say, which is equally important. You can have greatest of intention, but if it is not engaging, if it is not well done, if the camera work, the sound, the music, there are a lot of technicalities. There's a lot of science to it as well. If it is not put in place, if the script has its own science, behind it, how it's crafted. It is after all a craft also, a technique also. If all those parts don't come together and the story is not well told, then it's not going to create the desired impact that you're hoping for it to be, seen. But I have, through my acting career also, I have seen how people have responded. When you're acting, it's very technical. You don't even realize the impact that it may or may not have. For instance, in a film called Earth, which was about partition, and there was a scene where Amir Khan and I and Rahul Khanna, the other actor, and a child, we are all seeing a riot. So we are seeing a man whose both legs have been tied to different jeeps, and you literally hear the bone cracking in the film. Like it's a scene that everybody kind of cringes, and there is a building that's on fire, and you see a fire brigade coming, and you think it's going to throw water and it's going to extinguish the fire, but actually it brings in petrol. And it further burns, that building further burns. So it's a very disturbing scene. But the way we shot it was, there was a little flag on the opposite side of the building on a stick, and that flag was being moved around. And we all had to follow that flag because that was our eye line for different activities. And the director, Deepa Mehta, was just rattling the commentary that she was making up as we go, and now the man is tied to the jeep, and now the other jeep is tied, and these people are screaming, and now there is this happening, and his legs are being pulled apart, and now the fire brigade is coming. Thank God the fire brigade has come. Now it's going to throw water. So it was like a hectic commentary, and we were just looking, and we were horrified looking at that little flag. So when you are actually acting, so much of it is just technical. It's about imagining, being in the moment, imagining, feeding off each other as actors. But the real conversation starts when the film is over, when people watch it, they take something different from it. You do Q&As, question answer sessions after that. Somebody stops you and says, "Oh my God, that scene was so moving." And if you remember how you shot it, you never want to tell them and break the illusion. It's a whole different thing. So like sometimes people say, how do you prepare for a role? For instance, I did a film called Bhavandar, which was based on a true story of Bhavri Devi, who was gang raped in Rajasthan, and she's still fighting for justice. It's more than 20 years, and she, despite the fact it came in the media, she went to the Beijing Women's Conference, so many things, that it was out in the open, and yet till today, can you imagine that she has not got justice despite all this battle? Because it was people from her own village, they were upper caste. She was accused of lying, and the fact that an upper caste man would never touch a lower caste, which we know that is far from true. So it was her just playing that character, playing a real person, was an experience, because you had such an enormous responsibility. But you can't prepare for a character. How do you say, what does it feel to be someone who has been brutally raped by 5 men, and and she had a very supportive husband, but what is she really going through? You just have to keep tapping into your own emotions of whether anger, whether sadness, whether fear. All of those exist in all of us. But what I had to really practice at that time was, like, how do you carry 2 pots of water on your head and 1 pot on your side and walk through the desert? Those are the things. So while you're doing, it's all very technical. And I remember once I was in Chicago in the Northwestern University, and we showed the film there. We showed Bhavandar, and a woman after that came. She was crying away, I could see, and she came and said, really, thank you for doing this film. And my sister went through a similar experience on campus with somebody, and and she was like very disturbed, and she was sharing all of this, and I have no idea why I said this, and I just looked at her and I said, did this happen to you? Even though she had said, my sister, this, that, but there was something about her that kind of made me feel like maybe she was telling her story, and she was just trying to create a distance from it by saying it was her sister. And she just looked at me shocked, and she was like, yeah, it was. How did you guess? And I was like, I don't know. I don't even know why I asked. It's such a personal question, and especially when you're not sure, you're almost saying that I don't trust you, what you have said. But, so sometimes you make these connections with people through your films, and it's a whole different experience. And that's when you realize that, cinema has a power that is different, that is really goes into deep inside you and sometimes connects very, very, in a very, very deep, sublime way that even you may not be aware. Like maybe 10 years now, it's been like 2000 is when I went with the film. It's now 24 years later. Maybe she doesn't even remember the film. But in that moment, maybe it was cathartic to be able to talk about it, to be able to share. Maybe all her life she said it as this happened to her sister. Who knows what her life is? So I have, I think, connected with so many people, and the kind of conversations it has triggered. Uh, you know, I did a film, my first film that I directed was Firaaq. I think pretty much all of these films have come to the Trivandrum Film Festival. So I do have this connection, I think, with Trivandrum and Kerala for sure, having also done a few Malayalam films. And, and every time you interact with the audience, and even if they say, oh, this was a terrible thing to propagate, whether it was fire or with Firaaq, people have different views, and you realize that that is not to be discouraged. It's good that people have different views and they can share and you can argue and you can talk. And sometimes it's not directed at you, because you are now watching films on your devices, on the phones. We are watching it on, and it's yet such an immersive experience, but you discuss it with your friends, your family. How does a flat screen tell you what to feel? Like, how is it so real? Not even though this person isn't dying, that is ketchup or whatever, cough syrup, when that red blood flows, all of it is like, not 100% true, and yet you connect so deeply. And I think that's what good cinema does. But just as art can create a positive social change, it can help in changing a mindset, art is also a neutral thing. It can be used for propaganda. It can also create, something dangerous. It can, apart from following fashions, or she dressed like this and he wore that, and you'll suddenly see the market being flooded with those clothes or that hairstyle or that accessory. But apart from that, if violence is being normalized, if violence is being glamorized, that is also creating change. If stalking a girl is okay, that's how she finally says yes, then that is also creating, unfortunately, an undesirable change, but it's still creating a change. So therefore, art in itself, we can't say is always creating positive change. It will always depend on what kind of art. And really, we often say there is good cinema and there's bad cinema. But then who's going to define what is good cinema and what's bad cinema? What might be good for me may not be good for you. What might be good for you may not be for that person. And yet we say, no, but there is some films or some great music or some great writing will always remain great. And how do we decide that? Is it your word versus mine versus yours? But I feel that's why time is probably the only judge. If something withstands the test of time, then you know that this is great cinema. Satyajit Ray's films, are great cinema. Tagari's stories, is great literature. Kabir's dohas is philosophically, musically great poetry. So, Michelangelo, I mean, there are hundreds of such examples all over the world where they are undisputedly great. And why are they undisputedly great is because they have stood the test of time. So we cannot judge a work, your versus my word, but over the years we will know that, it is something that will touch people in generations that will come. I want to now stop. I mean, I could go on and share more stories, but I think it would be nicer if some of you could ask questions or share your stories, or, have a disagreement. We could have a healthy discussion around it. And so I would love to open it to all of you. Thank you. The first question is always difficult, but hopefully. Any questions, any sharings, any thoughts that trigger? Yes, please. You can say it from there. 1 second, sorry, if you can just please.
You said that art can also create a dangerous impact. This is what we are witnessing in contemporary India.
We are witnessing that.
Yeah, are we witnessing that in India now?
Yes, we are. I mean, we are seeing both, right? We are seeing impactful art that is also creating, that is also impacting our mindset, but we are also seeing films that are dangerous. The way women are being stereotyped, or a community is being shown, or the way violence is being glorified, or the kind of misogynistic trends, you know. I mean,
No,
anything you normalize, you start thinking this is the way it is. So it can be also dangerous. You don't feel that?
Recently, a movie was made named Kerala Story, and it was screened at International Film Festival Goa.
Oh, really? Yes, yeah, I heard about it, but I haven't
Propaganda
seen it.
movie against Kerala, blatant lies. So, have you noticed that?
I don't watch films that like things that even for academic reasons that I feel will not resonate with me. But you know, sometimes we can do films that we say this is the truth. How are we going to find out what? Earlier we used to say film is a reflection of reality. You know, I remember saying that in my talks earlier, like maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that film is a mirror, film is a reflection of truth, film is a reflect. Now I can't say that because how are you going to know whether this is the truth or not, you know? But I do believe in freedom of expression, and I can't want my freedom if I curtail your freedom. So I will never say that you ban even a film that I may think is really harmful. I think the whole idea is to create a discerning audience. Lot of responsibility lies on us as audiences also. What are the kind of films that we are gravitating towards, that we are supporting, we are liking, we are watching? And that depends on what are our prejudices. How do we think? What are our preconceived notions? What do we want to hear? Are we only seeing things that we want to hear, the films that we want to watch? Is it aligned with our ideology and that's why we like it? Are we really in pursuit of truth? Are we really wanting to find out what is the reality? And what happens often in, especially in mainstream cinema, you are trying to appease to a lot of people. A lot of money goes into it, you know. So the pressure of, if you want to please many people, you can never really take a stand. You can never really have nuances, because nuances are subtle. You know, something you may understand, somebody else may not understand. But if I give you a more black and white character, if I create a more black and white situation, most people will understand. So, and that's why independent cinema, not just in India, but world over, is a real challenge. In fact, in countries which have a big cinema industry, it's a bigger challenge because the whole space is taken up by the mainstream cinema and there's so little space for independent cinema, and they still have to compete with the big guys to distribute it and to, you know, market it, and they don't have that kind of a budget. Today films need a bigger marketing and distribution budget than the making of the film. Making of the film is like, okay, you make it somehow, but you make sure that the marketing is great. So therefore I really feel that every kind of film you know, should be made, could be made, and we are no one here to say you do this, you should do that. It, because I value my freedom, and therefore I'm very Voltairean in that way, that if you value your freedom, you have to value other people's freedom. But how do we become more discerning as a society, that we can make out what is right or wrong, what is truthful, what is not, what is good cinema, what is bad cinema, what is propaganda film, what is not? How do we do that? No one person is going to come and tell us. It is, you know, it's a chicken and egg. The kind films are also a reflection of our times, of us, of society. And then what they show, we start emulating from that, and as a society we imbibe that. So it's a vicious cycle.
Just one more question. So, at a time, films, art like movies are being used to spread propaganda or for propaganda.
Not art like films, I
where
would.
lies the role of filmmakers like you? Or do you think that directors like you or directors in general have a responsibility to defend this kind of propaganda?
Yeah, I mean, I would say art cinema, the true art cinema, independent cinema, hopefully doesn't do propaganda films. It's not used so narrowly. The idea is to, reflect the reality. I mean, I think all of us as individuals have a responsibility. We have a collective responsibility. Everything that's not happening right in this country, in this world, in our society, we are all complicit in it. If I don't speak up, in my silence, I'm complicit in it. It's like we are all part of it, so we can't absolve ourselves. But at the same time, I cannot tell you what to write, what to wear, what to watch, what kind of films to make. So, I used to support I still support a campaign called Dark is Beautiful, which was started by a Chennai-based organization. And when they approached me, and I said, of course I will support it, because we are we have a big color bias, and light skinned is really preferred, even though India is many shades of browns, and yet we have such an obsession with light skin. I remember all my articles in the beginning used to come as dark and dusky Nandita Das, like as if they had to quantify and qualify my skin color before they could talk. And in that, a lot of the times people would say, oh, but there are so many big actors who are promoting all these whitening creams. You should tell them what kind of harm it does to young girls especially, and how it attacks on their sense of self and self-esteem. But it's not that they are not aware of it. It's not possible. And anybody would know growing up in this country. So I cannot tell you not to do something. Each person will have to be responsible for their act, their choices, and because everyone knows what their responsibility is. So I think that comes with freedom. Because if I say that I think what you're doing, if you're doing these whitening creams, it should be banned, or you shouldn't make this kind of a film that is not telling the whole truth, or that is further polarizing. Tomorrow, it's so subjective that tomorrow they will come to me and saying, your film is not giving the right thing. Who am I going to argue with? It's all about perceptions and subjectivity. So it is a very dangerous double-edged sword, this thing of banning or censorship. Already there is a censor board, which in itself is very arbitrary. 5-6 people watch the film from different walks of life, and they sit on judgment on your film. And they tell you, no, this is not right, that is not right, why have you put this and why have you put that, and you have to take this out and take. Usually they come up with always some 20, 30. So after going through that, then there are self-appointed custodians of culture who then have a point of view also, and who then want to censor also. So it's an endless, role. And now with social media, in a way, we are all empowered to give our point of view. So, we have to find more civilized way of discussing, arguing, agreeing, disagreeing, but not go around beating up people if they are watching a certain film or trying to ban them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a question. Yeah.
Oh.
So I have 2 questions. Like the first one is like, does pessimism intersect with aesthetics? And also, I believe that through tragedies, 2 kind of feelings are produced there, either despair or delight. So at what point can we say that the delight experienced by the viewer is getting problematic?
Why do you think it's problematic?
Because the subject there, or the concept there, is tragedy.
Tragic.
Or some kind of pessimistic stuff there. So how can someone be getting so much delight from such a painful stuff out there? So is that problematic, getting that kind of experience?
I don't know if I've understood your question correctly. Let me attempt that. One is that, like I often think when I make a film, like how do I end it? Because I myself, I'm pessimistic and optimistic. There are days I feel like, yes, we've got to keep at it, even if there are problems, even if we don't see any change at all, even if things seem to be getting worse. Cynicism is for the lazy. So we have to be at it, and we have to do whatever we can, even if it's a drop in the ocean. Then there are days I feel like, oh my God, it's no point. Why am I even doing this? Who wants to watch it? I'm never going to get funding for the kind of films I want to do. I don't want to compromise, etc. I feel the same about my characters. I like to show the reality of people. I like to show the struggles of people. And I don't want the audience to say, oh, okay, everything is good. Now let's go and have some popcorn and, let's go out for dinner. So I don't want them to go on an upbeat. But I also feel that ending it on a very pessimistic note can pull you down and can make you feel that there is absolutely no hope. That nothing can be done. So if nothing can be done, what is the point of me doing anything? So if you see, there are only 3 films that I've directed, Firaaq, Manto and Zwigato. And in all 3, it is a mix of both. It is hopeful at one end, but not like a happy hopeful. It means like there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but at the same time, it's not going to be easy. Things are not sorted because you can't sort and resolve anything in a 1.5, 2-hour movie. You can only ask difficult questions and you hope that the answers will emerge through your own reflections and conversations. If you are asking that, sometimes you see a very tragic scene and yet people are, like I remember, for instance, in Shekhar Kapoor's Bandit Queen, there was a screening that I saw in the theaters, and it was a very, very disturbing scene where Phulan Devi's character is sort of being paraded naked, in terms of to take her revenge. And she's paraded naked, and there were people in the first, second row were throwing money on it and were clapping. It was just the most shocking experience of seeing tragedy unfold in front of your eyes, and this kind of a response, and you're like, really? Or you see a gruesome rape scene and it titillates somebody. Now you will always find some people who have those sick minds and there's nothing you can do. But I've seen that even in violence, like even let's say a gruesome rape scene, you can feel the intent. Sometimes it is to titillate. It is shot in a way that it actually, the intent is to titillate. And sometimes it is to churn your stomach. And that's why the intention of the makers is extremely important in what they convey and how they convey. So if somebody is feeling happy seeing a tragic scene, it could be 2 reasons. If the tragic scene isn't done well enough, is not creating that emotion at all for you, and you're taking it lightly, or if it is genuinely done and if it's genuinely tragic, and if somebody is still deriving pleasure from it, then maybe it's a sick mind. Anybody?
Ma'am, first of all, thank you for making movies and speaking up about the marginalized people, women, children. Even if I was really inspired by even to the movie Kannagi, to the recent one, listen to her. First of all, thank you for speaking up about all these things. I really want to know what inspired you to keep that courage in this patriarchal society. I don't know if I'm becoming offensive. In this patriarchal society, which really celebrating disturbing scenes, what inspired you to do the same?
No, thank you. People like you who watch those films, if they are, if they impact you, thank you. It's people like you who keep it going. And also when you see so much misery all around, you actually can't be you can't, pretend that it doesn't exist. How can any person truly be happy if your surroundings are full of, social ills, all kinds of problems, and you know that you're such a small drop. Like, even if I did what I did all my life, it's not even going to create this much of a dent, Like greater people have come and gone and we don't even think of them, we don't even remember them, we don't even know the impact. Yet I want to believe that every little bit counts. So it's a very, how should I say, it's a very thin line that you never think of yourself as doing something phenomenal, and at the same time, you cannot fall into the trap that even if I do it, what's the point? And also, more than anything else, whether it's a point for others or not, what gives meaning to your own life? If something is disturbing to you and you don't do anything about it, then, what moral right do we have to even complain about it? We should then just be happy with everything. Everything is great, and, we are anyway far more privileged. The fact that, anybody who's speaking English is already has gone to a school, that is already a privilege. right? If you have a cell phone, it's a privilege. If you have a computer, I mean, everything is a privilege. We have clothes, we have a house. We are already in the, upper bracket. In that sense, we have nothing to complain. So in a way, we have a greater responsibility. We have all that and yet we are not doing anything. So I think also to give yourself meaning. The other thing is that so many people have inspired me. So many people have done far courageous, greater things and have shown us that they've opened doors for us. Can you imagine, we all wear, let's say many of the women wear, let's say pants or jeans or whatever, right? Do we know the name of the woman who first wore jeans? We have no idea. Being a pilot or maybe something maybe going to Mars we may know, or like moon we may know. But who is the woman who sort of walked over that threshold for small thing? Who's the first woman who said, I'm going to do a job in the office? She wasn't doing it for humanity. She wasn't doing it for the larger good. She felt strongly. She felt this is the right thing to do. Why can I not do a job? If you can do, I have the same mind. I have the same dreams. I like to interact with people outside. I get excited by new ideas. Imagine the first woman who said, I'm going to do science. Science, a woman? We still have so much prejudice. Somebody says, oh, the doctor came, and we say, so what did he say? We don't say, what did she or he or they say? We just assume, a doctor came, okay, so what did he say? I see very educated, progressive people having that preconceived notion. So I think so many people have opened doors for us, and it is a pay forward. If you have the courage to do something different, it'll be difficult. Never think that it's going to be easy. There'll be 20,000 people telling you you're doing a wrong thing. Why do you have to do it? Why do you have to speak up? Nobody even watches your films. When I did Malayalam films, you know about Kannagi, or somebody may know about Nala Pennagal or whatever. But like people at that time, this is all pre-social media. Social media has changed that a bit. But there was no way for people to communicate, and people would say, why do you do this Tamil film and Malayalam film and Bengali film and Marathi film? Why do you do all these regional films? As if these language films were less important than the Hindi films or were less Indian, So you go with your conviction, and I think the courage comes because of conviction. If you are really strong in your conviction, you will not have to seek courage. Courage will automatically follow. It becomes a problem when we don't have convictions. Then we are like seeking courage. Like, I believe in it, but I think I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing. And to be confused is also not a bad thing. So I think it's really important to have good friends, good support system. To ask for help is not a sign of weakness. I think it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, I do not know. It's okay to say, I'm confused. All of that is fine, and then you will open doors for other women, other people in ways that they may not even come and tell you. They are just observing you. They're just seeing you and say, if she can do it, maybe I can. So I think that inspiration cycle has to continue.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
First of all, we are so lucky to have you here today.
Thank you.
My question is, among the few Malayalam films that you have done, the most appreciated character was Kannagi, as you mentioned. So could you please share your experience of portraying the character of Kannagi? And one more question. Yeah. How do you perceive Malayalam cinema today?
The second question is an easy answer, fabulous. It's really amazing stories, and I think amazing filmmakers. If you know some good filmmakers, please go and tell them that I'm very open to doing a Malayalam film. But the first question, I don't know, you can sit down if you want. So Kannagi was many years ago. I don't even know when, like I've forgotten the time, but I remember we were in a small place. Jairaj was the director, and Siddiq Lal, you all know better than me. We were shooting, and it was like an Antony and Cleopatra in a in a folkish sort of a setting in Kerala. So it was very different kind of a concept, and I was quite intrigued. I remember one incident that was very, very scary for me, and I'll share that. Yeah, if you have seen it, when I have this basket with a snake, with a cobra and it opens and it comes, and they had a real cobra, and I was terrified. And they kept saying, no, no, we have stitched him and it'll be fine, like it won't sting, it won't do anything, you're okay. And I remember my heartbeat was like so loud, I couldn't, it was deafening, and my eyes were closed because I was supposed to be crying and all of that, and it hadn't come up, like, and then suddenly I heard the hiss sound, and as a reflex my head went like this, and I had to do a take 2. So I had to do 2 takes with that snake. And after that, that man who was the snake charmer guy, you know, he had left the snake came out of the basket, and the whole unit was running helter-skelter. And I was like, you all are running and you put it on my lap. Like, this is crazy. So it was a very, very scary moment. But we shot it in very little time, in 18 days, I remember, or even maybe less. We shot it at a very shoestring budget with almost no money. But it was a very interesting experience. And the songs I heard only later, which I believe became quite popular in Kerala, because when I meet Malayalis even today elsewhere, they're always singing that song. And I'm like, I really don't know that song too much. I, by the way, never watch my films after I do it, unless I have to dub for it. And for the South Indian film, somebody else dubs. So I don't know who dubbed my voice, but I'm always afraid that it's going to sound very different. It's not going to sound like me. And yeah, so but I did see Kannagi in one of the festivals, and I thought it was an interesting film. It's very interesting that only women are asking. Now, I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but men need to think about it. Yes, please.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Usually we say art is the manifestation of our thoughts.
Say that again, say that again.
Usually we say art is the manifestation of our thoughts. And what we consider as the greatest artworks of all time were coated with pain and sorrow. My question is, do you believe that art is created out of grief rather than joy?
You know, most mainstream films, especially in India, but also everywhere else, is sort of a spectacle, or it's about aspiration, or it is glamorized, you know. So joy is a very deep thing in a way, right? But it creates a kind of a illusion of everything being beautiful and lovely, and everyone's sort of coming together. The families have had problems, then they all come together and sing a song. Or the man and the woman, they fall in love, they have problems, but oh, they are united. So I think it's more a reaction to that, because life is a mix of joy and grief. So a lot of the times when the parallel cinema movement started in the 70s, late 70s and 80s in India, and you know, a lot of the filmmakers felt, why do we need songs, or why do we need to make everything so glamorous? Why can't it be real? And they were impacted by the struggles of people. And a lot of the times independent cinema does become burdened by it, because you know, you feel like nobody's showing us the reality of things. You know, we are just glamorizing everything so much. So with that desire to show real stories of real people, quote unquote, you tend to then, you know, maybe show more grief. I mean, it's interesting, 2-3 people have talked about grief and tragedy, and I think I need to see more Malayalam films as to understand what films are you maybe referring to. But it's also a reflection of our times, you know. Depressions have gone up as a society. There are mental health issues have gone up. People, despite social media, Facebook, various ways to connect, people are not sharing. People are not being open, because there's a fear of judgment. I always have to show the nicer side of myself. Why? Right? But that is what is happening. You take photos with filters, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh my God, but I don't look like that. Now, you stop liking yourself because you have now fallen in love with the image that you have put on your Instagram or on your selfies or on your feed. So we are actually isolating people. So I think there is a greater sense of loneliness. There is a greater sense of, I cannot share my true feelings with anybody because I'm scared. What are they going to think about me? There is a fear of employment. I have to always look more confident than I am, because if I say I don't know, I will be judged. They will say, what? You don't know? You're supposed to know this. If you're a leader, you're supposed to know. If you're a follower, this whole pressure to always look strong and be confident, and be popular, look a certain way, it's tiring. So there is a lot of grief and tragedy, but it doesn't mean that you stop at only reflecting that grief and tragedy. You ask some hard questions, and through your cinema too, that what are the reasons for that grief and tragedy? What are the possible solution that we need to think about? Not to give a solution, because each one of us are in a different context and we have to find our solution. There is no pill that we can swallow. So I think, yeah, I mean, I'm going to think about it, because it's an interesting question about grief and tragedy. Do independent cinema, art house cinemas, are we talking more about that? Maybe because we also feel comedies and, glamorized big houses and singing in Cape Town and dancing in something, or VFX films. People are already doing that and they are making good money and they are being shown and made. Where are the stories of people and where are their struggles? So maybe that's why we end up making more such films. Is there a token man who wants to ask a question? Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me again and for this interaction. I always go back.
We have come to the end of the session.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before asking her to retire from the dais, I would invite Dr. Ajit Kumarji, the director of this Global Science Festival, to hand over a memento to our chief guest.
I invite Anita Alfred to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. It is with great pleasure and heartfelt gratitude that I stand before you to extend a vote of thanks following the insightful and inspiring talk delivered by our distinguished guest. I express my deepest gratitude to Srimati Nandita Das on behalf of the entire team of GSFK. Her wealth and experience has provided us with invaluable insights. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Major Dinesh Bhaskar, Additional Private Secretary to Honorable Chief Minister of Kerala, for his continuous support. And I thank Dr. Ajit Kumarji, Dr. Vaishagan Thampi, and Sri Shyam VS for their invaluable presence. Heartfelt gratitude is extended to all the staff and volunteers who worked tirelessly behind the scene. Your dedication and enthusiasm have not gone unnoticed, and we are immensely thankful for your invaluable contribution to the success of the festival. Finally, our heartfelt thanks goes to everyone present here today, be it students, professionals, or science enthusiasts. Your presence has greatly enriched this event. I once again thank each and everyone on behalf of Global Science Festival, Kerala. Thank you.